All right, guys, I saw the new Brawley movie and it was awesome. I'm telling you right now, I am going to try to incorporate this film into the methodology of writing uh, I guess, various ways to develop plot and character. I don't know how they keep making each one of these Dragon Ball movies better than its predecessor, especially with the original creator coming back. And I guess that's the self evident answer. The man is a genius. I remember when Dragon Ball Z was first brought to the US, like in 1999, I think it was the end of 98 or the beginning of 99. And that would have put me in the third grade. And it was the greatest cartoon then. And honestly, I'm 28 years old now, married, father of two, and it's still my favorite cartoon. It's still amazing. It still holds water, and the quality has not dropped with each subsequent installment in the series. And Dragon Ball, I know came before Z, obviously, but that never gained a lot of traction here in the West. That was really for the big fans that couldn't get enough after Z came out. And then, of course, there was GT, but I don't think that was really ever considered canon. That was almost like just licensing to a third party the creator did not have any involvement in. But I'm bunny trailing here a little bit. To get back on topic, the film Dragon Ball Z Brawley, it was incredible. The two predecessors to that was Battle of the Gods and Resurrection Frieza. And I apologize, those two movies were Dragon Ball Z. Even though it's really part of the new series Dragon Ball Super, and I said it was called Dragon Ball Z Brawley. It was called Dragon Ball Super Brawley. And I know we're splitting hairs here. It's all part of the same multiverse. But the movie was just fantastic. And for those of you out there who are aware, there were three movies, not two, but three previous films about Brawley. And he was one of those, I guess, technically non-canon, I would almost argue, fan fiction characters that was so popular with the fan base that the original creator said, you know what, I'll go ahead and just incorporate him and retroactively canonize him, but I'm going to rewrite the character, the backstory, the development, and it was incredible. The movie was just spectacular. They rewrote the character with much more dimension and depth to him. Spoiler alert for those who saw the old movies that aren't considered canon. He basically just had a vendetta against the main protagonist, Goku, because when they were babies, Goku cried a lot, and it was just nerve wracking for Brawley. It's a very, I mean, that's stupid. Even for Dragon Ball, that was some pretty lazy writing, just all around bad humor, bad writing, just pathetic. But incredible character, incredible power, lots of fun to watch. But with the new movie, the re-canonized version of Brawley, so much more went into it. The relationship with his father, how that ties into the Frieza saga for those who watched Z, when after the Ginyu Force, but before the actual Frieza saga, or maybe it was right at the beginning of the Frieza saga, when you find out about Planet Vegeta and Frieza wiping out all the Saiyans and all of that, to show those flashbacks in this movie and how Brawley was tied into that with his father and where they were when all that went down was wonderful. So now that I've spent over 4 minutes just telling you how incredible the Dragon Ball franchise is and how everybody should see the new Brawley movie, let me reel this in terms of the writing aspect, since that's what my full intention was with this channel to begin with. That movie did an incredible job, firstly, by not just throwing an antagonist at us, not just throwing a villain at us, but created a very sympathetic character. You know, you have your Darth Vader type of villain. Some people have argued Thanos from Infinity War And I would accept that as a plausible example of just the sympathetic or somewhat sympathetic villain, or just a villain that had more to their personality than just simply wanting to take over the world and just committing evil for evil's sake. That's a villain that does not have much interest. And Brawley is another villain, quote unquote. I don't want to spoil the film, but he becomes much more sympathetic, really from the beginning to end. You start to see the transformation, but you also just see the external forces involved and what leads him to make certain decisions or behave a certain way, and you find yourself almost at one point rooting for him. But if you're a big fan of Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super, you obviously have to root for the Z fighters. You have to root for Goku. You have to root for Vegeta. But at the end of the day, it was incredible to see this showdown. And as opposed to like Frieza or Cell or Majin Buu, where though they were very interesting characters for different reasons, at the end of the day, they were still very evil and just agents of chaos, like the Joker. As I like to keep on my wall here as a reminder of what great writing can create. Thank you, Christopher Nolan. But Brawley was definitely one of those villains, or I don't want to say villain, I'll just say antagonist or anti-hero that really helped drive this movie. And again, compared to the other villains, especially in the second half, or probably the bulk of Z, I think there's about 250 episodes, Brawley was not this pure evil monster, which is also what the original character was depicted as in those three Brawley movies. And the verdict is in, consensus is in. I don't know if I'm using the right language or verbiage here, but the vast majority of the fans are saying that new Brawley is far superior to old Brawley. So that I guess is my tidbit for those of you writing out there. This would apply to fiction for character development. Those of you that are trying to, and not so much character development. I mean, yes, character development, but if we're just going to, give you a very broad universal tip, when writing a story, there obviously has to be conflict. Now, if there's no conflict, there's really no interest in the story. And to create conflict, and more so interesting conflict that matters and that actually moves forward and doesn't really resolve in 3 minutes in a 3-minute conversation. It requires more time and more debating. Depending on what the story is, maybe some violence is involved in as well. But the conflict requires characters that are not one-dimensional, and you have to create them in a way that you don't have archetypes where the protagonist, or I shouldn't even say the protagonist, but the hero, quote unquote, can't be this puritanical, messianic figure with no imperfections, and you can't create the villain as this purely evil, satanic figure that, as I said before, does evil for evil's sake. There has to be more of a spectrum between the two, not a binary. And even when you have a film like The Matrix, where yes, to almost create a pun out of the computer language, the binary between the villain and hero, between Neo and Smith, though yes, to borrow the computer language, they called that a binary. The Oracle called that a binary, but there was still a bit of a spectrum between the two. And for those of you who have not seen the Matrix trilogy, that's another film series that you have to watch, including the Animatrix, because you'll understand what I'm saying when I say that. But take that as truth, though, that principle, that when you develop a story and develop conflict between two characters, not to create pure good and pure evil, but to give imperfections to the good and to show some sympathetic qualities with the villain. And that will create a struggle with you as the audience, and that'll make a far more interesting story.